Welcome back, guys. This is another lecture in the series of Learn How to Invest. And thank you for coming back. And also, I've always forget to sort of mention to you, if you like this video, make sure you press the share button or the like button so that it gives me enough information about what you want thinking. And also, if you have any questions, do write in the comments box down underneath in YouTube. Okay, thank you very much. So today, this lecture is going to address one factor: how to become a determined investor. So towards that, I'll want to share a slide with you, and this shows you. These are all things that we have dealt with in the past lecture. So, bid mass. Any secondary school student of maths will be able to tell you what bid mass is. This is an acronym used by students to remember the order of operation when you are given a complex algebra formula. So we all know that. We all know that we do whatever is within the brackets first, then we'll have to do the indices, divide, multiply, add, and subtract, and that's the order of operation. Okay, so that's what is taught in British schools. If you are an American, the acronym that they use is please excuse my Aunt Sally, my dear Aunt Sally. So it's parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, or subtraction. So that's the order. So it's the same thing. Parentheses or brackets, exponents or indices. It's the same. Okay. So this just to give you an idea that there are certain rules to achieve good results. So just like in maths, in investing, there are certain rules that you have to follow to get you good results. Okay. Of course, there are other ways of doing it, but you won't get the right answer. So in investment, what's the similar kind of rule? The rule is before you start investing, you need to follow these steps. Step number one, first, you need to determine what's your monthly expense. This is, mortgage, rent, insurance, things there for food. So minimum expense that you have to live for a month. Okay, so you determine that. That's a step one. So step two, what you need to do is you need to save enough money so that you have a emergency fund or equal to 1 month's expenses. Now, this can be different for different people. If you're a single person, if you're just a married couple, if you are a family of 4, 5 people going to school, college, and all that kind of thing. So it's a different number for different people, or you always have to have an emergency fund of a month. So in case you can't work or you can't, there's many reasons. Life is unpredictable, so you need to have that. And then once you've made this emergency fund in place, you keep saving until you get 6 months of expense. So if you listen to this podcast, you'll hear people saying it's either 6 months or 12 months. You might say, well, Joe, can you tell me what is it? Is it 6 months? Is it 1 month? Is it 2 months? Is it 6 months? Is it 12 months? And so the rule of thumb is, how long will it take for you to find another job if you were to lose your current job? So that's the formula. So if you are in a high demand job, you may get a job in 2 months. So you don't have to have 6 months expense reserve in the reserve fund. You can have just 2 months. If, on the other hand, you feel that your job is not easy to replace, it will take a longer period, then you will have to have longer than 6 months. But on an average, 6 months of expense you need to have as a reserve fund. So step number one, 1 month's expense, you need to sort of determine what it is. Step number two, you need to put away another 1 month's expense as your reserve fund. This is excluding your next month's salary. Remember that, okay? This is in addition to your next month's salary. And the third step is to accumulate enough funds, save enough funds, to have a sum of money equal to 6 months of expense as a reserve fund. Once you've done that, you keep saving again. So it does take a year to achieve this target. So once you achieve that, whatever is remaining, whatever you are saving, whatever remains, that's the amount of money that you have to use for investment. Never use your reserve fund or your emergency fund as money for investment. That's money that you might need at any time. So, what's the rationale behind it? Now, whenever you invest money, you always need to remember that the money that you put away for investment to provide a certain amount of income, to provide a certain amount of growth, has to be left alone for a certain period of time. It's like, just imagine that it's like planting a seed. There's no point in planting a seed and the day after or the week after, like my cousin does, you know, taking it out and find out whether it's just started to grow. There's no point in doing that. That defeats the object. So you need to be able to leave it there to grow for a certain amount of time. The longer you leave it, the better. But it cannot be less than a year. It cannot be less than a year. So if you have any intention of doing it less than a year, you might as well not sort of leave it. And if you listen to enough podcasts, they would even say it's not even enough to leave it for a year. You've got to leave it for a minimum period of 5 years to experience what a stock market can do to your investment. So that's very, very important. The longer you leave it, the better. You really need to leave it for 5 years to get a guaranteed return, but you cannot take it out in a year. Most probably, you would have lost money in a year. That's how it works. So remember, once you get this in place, you're a much better investor. You're capable of leaving your money to grow. And because you have all these jars in place, you are much better in achieving that. Okay. Thank you very much for listening. And that'll be the end of today's